Welcome to INN CEO Talks. Joining me today is Chris Frostad, the founding partner of Purepoint Uranium, which trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol PTU and on the OTCQB under the symbol PTUUF. Chris brings years of experience and expertise to his position as president and CEO of the company. Mr. Frostad has led public companies in both the technology and mining and metals industries. And throughout his career, he's been instrumental in the development and building of a variety of high-growth, early-stage public and private companies. So prior to Purepoint, he held numerous senior positions in the technology industry, including CEO in residence of a Toronto-based venture capital firm. He's also a chartered accountant and a chartered professional accountant who began his career in international taxation with Deloitte. Chris, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
You know, Purepoint has become well known because of its Hook Lake partnership with Cameco and Orano, yet, not yet. And on top of that, you appear to have a very large portfolio of great projects. So what are Purepoint's priorities in the coming years? Like sort it out so that our viewers can say, okay, this makes sense to me.
Well, you were probably more correct when you said "and yet," because Hook Lake really has been our focus over the last few years during a time when uranium prices were languishing, and it's been difficult in this particular sector to raise and spend significant amounts of exploration dollars. So Hook Lake has been a great project in that regard, and that it's on trend with two of the largest discoveries of the last 10 years. And it's backed financially and technically by two of the largest uranium suppliers in the world. So and we're the operator. So we have a 21% ownership in that particular project. Cameco and Orano split the remaining 79%. And it's been a great project. We've made many discoveries along the way. We've learned a lot about the area, and we've still got a lot of work to do out there. The downside of all of this, though, is that we have another 11 projects that we do own 100% of. And we have historically done a fair amount of work in advancing those projects and moving them along. And because of the situation, the state of the sector over the last 10 years, we really haven't been focusing on those projects. We've for the most part sort of put them in abeyance and kept them on maintenance and waiting for a time such as we're seeing now with uranium prices coming back with great gusto, that we can now apply appropriate financing and funding to those particular projects. So when you ask what our focus is, we're still obviously very, very keenly interested in continuing our work at Hook Lake, but now we're going to really be opening up the warehouse on a lot of new projects. Well, they're not new projects, a lot of old projects. These are projects that we made discoveries on over the last 5-10 years, significant ones, and we're now in a position where we can follow up on those. We've identified uranium mineralization in many of them, two of them in the very first drill programs we undertook on those projects. So that really is our focus now, is turning the spotlight towards some of those. And we'll be doing a significant amount of drilling in the coming year on a number of those projects.
Now, are those projects in the same geographic region as Hook Lake, or are they spread out into different properties in different jurisdictions?
Sure. Well, no, Hook Lake is on the southwestern edge of the Athabasca Basin, which is an area that wasn't all that prolific historically. I mean, you have Cluff Lake over in that area, which was a very historic one of the original mines in the area. But it was about 10 years ago when Fission Uranium started to identify their Triple R deposit, and shortly after NextGen identified Arrow. Between the two of them, there's about 350 million pounds there, and our project continues to the north along that same trend. But all of our other projects are on the eastern side of the basin, which is the mine trend that runs up that edge of the basin, which is where all the operating mines in Canada are right now, and where all of the uranium that's produced in Canada comes from.
So as we move forward and we take a look at what the potential need for uranium is, that, and on top of that, the Sprott Uranium Fund and its influence on the market, what are the indications on what we're going to be looking at price-wise and the demand?
Well, I think, we obviously 10 years ago, a lot of people are familiar with the fact that the price of uranium started to fall out as a result of a couple of things. One was the tsunami we saw in Japan that took out Fukushima, and they shut down 10% of the world's reactors over there. But more importantly, the market had been undergoing a lot of new low-cost uranium out of Kazakhstan that hadn't been seen before. So it was really the combination of those two things that wound us up in a situation of oversupply and a lot of inventory in the system. The price of uranium then dropped below the incentive price, which is the price you need to make a dollar producing uranium. And we started to see a lot of mines then getting shut down. So we've seen a lot of downturn in production over the last 10 years. We've seen mines shut down, such as Cameco's Rabbit Lake and MacArthur River in Canada. And we've even seen Kazakhstan have to turn down the tap a little bit. So, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually been producing, the world's been producing about 20 to 30% less uranium than the reactors have been consuming as we try and get this rebalance back into the system. When Sprott Physical Uranium Trust started buying physical uranium back in July, they started doing that on a regular basis, on a daily or monthly, weekly basis. And what that did is they sort of acted as a market maker to the spot price, which is not that transparent always. And I think we saw immediate jump in the price of uranium, which demonstrated the fact that we were, there isn't an endless supply of discretionary uranium on the spot market, and signaled to the utilities that they have to start getting back into longer term contract mode. So if your incentive price is about $50 to $65, $70 a pound to start reopening up some of these mines and building new ones, the price of uranium is still in the $40 range. So we have another 50% increase to go before we really get to where we want to be with the price of uranium. And this is what we've been seeing over the last year, and I think this is what we will see over the next 12 months is that price coming back up to incentive levels or beyond, because it once we get into that rebalancing of supply and demand, you can't start turning on these mines overnight. The ones that are ready for constructions have to be built. The ones that have been put on care and maintenance are going to take a year or two to actually ramp back up again. So we may actually see the price of uranium exceed incentive levels significantly for a short period of time before it comes back down.
Well, and also if we're going to anticipate what the future demand is going to be, China has announced that they are looking at bringing on 150 new reactors over what period of time is uncertain, but probably within the next decade or so. And the volume of uranium that's going to be required to fuel those plants is going to be significant. It's going to start to put upward pressure on the resource.
Sure, for sure. And we've also seen these new small modular reactors coming into play that I think are really going to change the nature of our ability to rely more on nuclear fuel. The challenge with nuclear power is it's very expensive, relatively speaking, to build a reactor relative to smaller plants or based on other fuel sources. And it undergoes a lot of political and social pressures as well to get these things built. These small modular reactors, actually, though, are going to be able to be built quicker, cheaper, safer, et cetera. In Ontario, actually last week announced one of the first plans to build up a small modular reactor here in Ontario, which should be, I think, operational by 2028, I think they're saying, but it's one of the first in the world. And I think this is going to be a trend which is going to assist in, it's going to become a fairly significant factor in green energy.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that you're absolutely right. This push for green energy has all of a sudden opened up an opportunity for uranium and atomic power that had been, there was ambivalence towards or downright fear of in the past, and now we're saying, well, no, we want green energy. Well, what better source is there?
Well, sure. And I mean, that's been a huge shift we've seen in the last 10, 15 years. 10, 15 years ago, nuclear reactors and uranium, et cetera, that was kind of the fear and the enemy. But today, carbon's the enemy. And it looks like nuclear power may be a primary savior in that regard.
Right. So you touched on the fact that you are an operating company. What are your long-term plans for the company? Do you see continuing to build out those operational capabilities, or can you see, working alongside other producers as a way of being able to maximize production?
Well, sure. I mean, I think certainly over the last 10, 15 years, we've created a very deep relationship with Cameco and Orano as being their exploration team, if you will, on the western side of the basin. And we talked to them about other projects as well that we could become involved in, because they're definitely, their exploration efforts are still very well intact. It's interesting working with a major like a Cameco or Orano, because their objective time horizons are very different than ours. They're looking ahead 5 to 10, 15 years when they're going to need more feed for some of these mills, and we sort of operate on a month-to-month basis. But it gets us involved in more substantial projects. Hook Lake, for example, our partners can't get involved in or can't free up exploration budget for any project that doesn't have the potential to at least come up with 100 to 150 million pounds. That alone makes sure that that's where our eyes are focused, is on large mineable deposits that can be brought into production. And I think our projects on the eastern side of the basin, if you look at them, are 100% owned projects. They're large, they're well established, they're exactly the right zone, and there's a lot of room there for big discovery. And that's where we keep our eye. So our expectation is that over the next year or two, as we now apply more significant efforts towards these projects, we are in very good place to come up with at least one and maybe more discoveries.
For anybody who's been watching this interview to this point, it may seem self-evident as to why now is a good time to invest in your company. But why don't you get to share something that you probably haven't been able to do for quite some time because of the nature of the market? Let investors know why this is the right moment for them to be getting behind your company. Yeah.
Sure. And I think, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we really have been, we're one of the last men standing from 10 years ago, when there was dozens and dozens and dozens of us wandering around in northern Saskatchewan. And that speaks to the value of our projects. We have projects of merit. We're just not real estate companies hanging on to projects in the right neighborhood. These are projects that we can demonstrate have real value. And we haven't, to your point, we haven't been talking about these projects because we couldn't create value in them during the previous few years. But now we're at a point where any one of our projects is coming up with, we're following up on drill results where there are measurable percentages of uranium mineralization being found, where typically, most drill holes come up with nothing. We're following up on real mineralization. And I think we've got more than one flagship project, and that really is the message here, is that we're not a one-trick pony, we're not a Hail Mary. We are exploring in a very very methodical and proper manner across a complete pipeline of projects, not just one or two. So, and we can continuously reprioritize where we put our efforts, where we put our money, based on the results on an ongoing basis, to make sure that we are always looking in the most prospective areas.
It's a wonderful position to be in now, isn't it?
It's been a while coming, but we're glad to be here now. Yeah.
Well, as things continue to shift in that direction, I hope that you'll come back in the future and give us updates. Very interesting to speak with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.